Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play Metal Warriors. In the last part we finished off Stage 6 after starting it 2 parts ago, as well as polished off Stage 7. And now it's time for something a bit special. Our success on Earth has put the Axis forces on the defensive. The mission today is the first step in putting a quick end to the war. The main Axis communications tower is located 50 miles from our current position. A lone pilot in a nitro unit will sneak through enemy lines and enter the tower. The pilot will steal the Axis command key and bring it back here. Welcome to the secret mission. We unlocked this by getting through the first 7 stages without dying whatsoever. A lot of the times this phrase is not using continue, but that's because dying is a game over outright. You need to use continue at that point. And this is one of the more interesting stages in the game, which is how it's set up. We need to abandon the nitro early on, and we're doing a lot of this, early portion especially, out of suit. We're going to be still using some mechs throughout this, don't get me wrong. We're going to be particularly using a Prometheus a good bit, and as well as a Drosh. But our goal here is to go to the bottom first, because that's where the command key is. The brunt of this mission isn't getting the command key. It's getting out of this place. Because we're going to have to climb the entirety of this tower. We're on level 0 now. This place goes up towards level 50. We're gonna go through about 50 floors of stuff. It's not exactly 50 floors. You got the command key. Now get out of there. It's closer probably to 12 or so actual levels, but we have to go through elevators every single floor. There's a central shaft that you can just gun your way through, admittedly, but you're likely to take a lot of damage along the way that's just not worth it. If you want to get through this mission safely, you want to take the side paths. And we want to keep the Drosh safe because it's our best bet for the boss fight. So we're going to want to come over here to the left, and we're going to find that Prometheus I talked about earlier. We're going to have to unlock a door to get to it, but we're going to want it. This mission is slow. I will say that outright. We are here for this entire part, and we don't get to the boss fight until maybe 14 minutes in. We're here for a long haul. At the same time, though, this is probably one of my favorite missions in the game in terms of limitations, because you have just these 2 mechs. There's some health along the way, don't get me wrong, and even some extra other bonuses if you look around enough. Like at the start of the mission, you saw me with the nitro fly up to, I want to say, around level 30 to unlock a door. That's going to be a seeker, seeker beam ability for us later on. That's going to be helpful. But this is where they really just kind of test your knowledge of the game's mechanics to the limit. I will say this is probably, barring the final mission in the game, the hardest mission. There's a reason they require you to have gotten this far without dying to get it. You need to know your mechanics to do this well. However, shielding is almost useless in this stage because, honestly, the Prometheus' shield, I feel, is the least effective, and I can't exactly place why. We also get the first appearance of that enemy down there. I think that's a plasma launcher. They don't look that threatening, they just fire a beam at you, yeah. But what they don't show is that that beam does about 6+ hits at once, and it can easily one-shot a mech. You need to be careful around those things, and this is why I tell you to take it pretty slow in the later parts of the game, just so you don't end up getting blindsided by something like that. For instance, like this, I would rush out there, but no, just aim upwards and take it out like that. Learn to use the Prometheus' beam creating ability, which I should mention, I actually misspoke in mission 3 or so. You don't use the beam, the block creation ability with the B button. No, you do that with the A button. Mines are probably going to be one of your worst enemies here, just due to the fact there's so many of them in this stage, and the Prometheus has a bit of a hard time taking out the mines once they've spawned. What you really want to do for easy access of destroying them is activate them and let them come towards you, but aim 1 point downwards to the point where you're just pointing slightly diagonally down, and then fire when it's close. And it's not a guaranteed hit, but you're likely to hit it. throughout the stage, I do recommend as well taking little breaks to get out of your Prometheus and go back through the floors you've gone through before, just in order to get the drosh back, so you don't have to backtrack all the way to the start to get it. And because of that, I also recommend leaving holes in the barriers that you're creating, just so you can go back and get it. Ah, that shield actually worked there. Maybe it's just variant stuff. Maybe... Oh, you know what it probably is? The shields in this game, despite sometimes shielding you from all sides like this, probably only work on the front. That's what it probably is. And, yeah, you're gonna take some damage during this stage. Don't fear that. Well, I guess fear it a little bit if you're using the drosh, but there are at least some health along the way, though the Prometheus has a hard time accessing some of them. Because obviously, since it can't jump, you can't, in order to get, say, this next health box, which is a floor above me, technically, I need to go to the floor above it and fall down slightly. It's kind of perilous to do that, admittedly. Also, I don't think I mentioned it before, but I love how well the sprites are animated in this game for the mechs. Like, the joints move properly and all such. It's really good looking. This game has a lot of heart put into its actual game. And at this point, I'm backtracking a bit to go grab the drosh, because well, first off, I also need to just unlock this. But this is a good place to get the drosh, too. Because at this point, we're roughly... Yeah, we're roughly, I'd say, halfway through the tower at this point. The later floors do get a bit more perilous, and don't feel bad if you lose, like, the Prometheus, as long as you're outside of it when it happens. Because there is a lot of damage here. They really throw everything the game has thrown at you at this point at you, barring lava. And crushers, because there's no crushers in this stage either. The only real threat damage-wise is actual enemies. I do think this is a worthwhile reward for getting through the game thus far without dying. Though I do wish there was a bit more going on in it, if that makes sense, because this is a very unique stage layout. I wish they could have had a bit more unique going on, like a unique boss fight or something like that. We'll talk more about that later, but there's a bit more they could have done, but I'm glad there's at least some sort of bonus here. Because this game, this stage, is an admitted difficulty spike over the previous stage, which is why I guess it is the secret stage. But even then, going right from the previous stage into the final stage also would have been hard, so... difficulty spike either way. In fact, if anything, going through this stage better prepares you for the final stage. Enemies like that cannon up there, though, are going to be a bit annoying, because first off, you'd obviously have to take them one pellet out at a time with the Prometheus. But also because they're just enough out of the way that they'll still be hitting you when you can't hit them with the Prometheus, for instance. Oh yeah, that's right, you can also push mechs out of the way, that's useful. And it's worth noting, because I think I've mentioned this before in like part 1, sort of. But every mech in the game has a bit of a width to it. For the most part, mechs can go through one block of empty space. Say, like, if I were to destroy this bridge here, one block, I could fall through it like I did a moment ago. You could do that with the Prometheus, the Havoc, the Nitro, and I think the Spider. Don't quote me on the Spider. I'm also jump cutting back up here, at least. But things like the Drosh, the Ballistic and such, I think they need more. Don't quote me on the Ballistic. I actually think the Ballistic can make it through one hole as well, but the Drosh needs 3 in order to move around. Also, be careful with this section with the Prometheus, because if you're not careful, you can actually damage the Drosh with the Prometheus, and that's no good. You want that thing to be at as high health as possible for the boss fight. Also, that, I believe, is the item box we unlocked for using the Nitro to reach that one switch early on in the stage. Also, there's a gravity unit up there. That's from a port. I think I briefly mentioned ports back in, like, part 1. Ports don't show up in every stage. What they are is essentially infinite respawns of certain items. Like in the first stage, there was an infinite health respawn, just to get you used to the game. But there's one here for the anti-gravity device, which I think is there in the case you want to bring the Prometheus to the boss fight, so you at least have a way out with it. Because the Prometheus itself can't actually reach the exit without it. which kind of sucks, but at least they gave you that if you need it. I don't think I've ever found where to get to that thing, but it's there. I think the worst part about this stage is something I mentioned last part. Waiting for the elevators over and over again kind of makes this stage a bit too slow and tedious at times. Like, when you're just going from the side to side on a floor, it's cool. But waiting for the doors, the elevators themselves is not fun. Sub-weapons aren't going to be of much use in this stage, aside from the occasional cannon you might want to fire a missile at. So if you grab one, cool, but you don't need it. If anything, I'd hope you with random boxes, because there are a couple in this stage that you get health more often than not. And that's what I was talking about earlier when it comes to taking out the mines. If you time it correctly, you can shoot them out of the air, but you need to be a bit careful with how you aim. Otherwise, you're taking some pretty cheap damage. Well, not cheap damage, quick damage. I forget what's to the side there. I think there's a pathway that leads to a switch that might unlock a door, but I don't entirely know. I think it might be a way for you to technically reach this, but something I don't think I've mentioned entirely. The out-of-suit person cannot damage anything aside from other people. There's no other weapons for you to use. You can't, like, use a rocket launcher or all that. It's just you with your machine gun. Which kind of sucks. Kind of wish there was some variance there, but I can understand why. Especially in a game like this, where the mechs are supposed to be threatening, having yourself be able to take them out of suit would probably kind of neglect the purpose of a lot of the mechs. Thankfully, at this point, we are reaching the end of the stage. If you pause the map at any time in this stage, you see what looks to be two larger slopes coming up on the top of the map. That's your good indication that you could probably just go and grab the Drosh at that point, because there's not many enemies left, so you can make it through pretty safely because you're close to the boss fight. I don't want to do that quite yet because there's a few more enemies I want to take out just to be safe. I'd rather take this to Prometheus to right before the boss fight. But this last section here is probably the most dangerous in the entire stage because they got some mine throwers that you want to be very careful about how you take out. Otherwise, you might lose your Drosh or Prometheus, and that's no good. And the mine throwers are potentially dangerous, or very dangerous here, because there's really no way I can think of, aside from going to grab the Drosh, that you could avoid that damage. Thankfully, I took out that mech there. But at this point, I need to abandon the Prometheus. Why does it regrow its guns when you leave it? That's... ah, damn. I wonder if there's a bug in this game at all, where when you leave a mech and you leave off screen enough, it can regain its health. I doubt... This game's solidly programmed enough to the point where I doubt that's a thing. But I have to wonder if that was ever a thing in testing. It probably was. When they were testing, like, leaving and re-entering the mech. Oh, going a bit farther. Here we are, Drosh. At this point, just fly up and be careful of any potential plasma launches you should be good. I'm going to grab the Seeker Shot just to make the boss fight a bit more tolerable. But even then, if you use the Drosh for the boss fight, you're going to have an easier time to begin with. First off, because you have better mobility options. But also, you might remember last part I brought up its little power dive maneuver, where when you shield, it kind of just makes a giant wave of energy around it. That is going to be your best friend with taking out the boss fight. Also, be careful of the plasma launcher here. It can very easily damage you, and you don't want that. One thing I'm not sure about with the Seeker Shots is exactly when they start homing in on things, because obviously you have times like that where they just won't home in and will just hit the wall for some reason. At this point, fly right, and boss time. There's no way out of here for you, except in a coffin. And now we do the same boss fight we did back at the underground base, only this time I have a much quicker method of killing it. However, at the same time, it's also a much more cramped arena, so you need to be careful. There's also less health. I recommend waiting until it gets onto the ground to fire a missile and then power diving into it because it's dead. Like I said, that power dive is powerful. It is really good. It makes me sad there's not many opportunities to pilot a Drage in the game. I can only think of maybe 2 or 3. Because honestly, this would be really fun to use in like a wider circumstance. But now we just have some final switches to flip, and then we will be done with this stage. Be careful, though, in the case you're low on mech HP, because there are some mines in this upcoming portion here, as well as one last Havoc and a soldier to damage you. So you could still die even after the boss fight, so be careful. Once you hit the final switches, though, and take care of those last enemies, you're good to go, and that's the end of the stage. This stage can go on a bit long, but I like the setup of it, and it's admittedly a nice little bonus, even though I think there could have been a bit more added onto it. But with that, I'm going to need to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching, and in part 5, we're heading off to the game's final stage. See you guys then.